outside is frightful, but the fire is so delightful. And since we've no place to go, let it snow, let it snow, let it snow. Are you listening? In the lane, snow's glistening. A beautiful sight, oh, we're happy tonight, walking in a winter wonderland.
Hello and welcome to a Christmas edition of Off the Shelf Reviews.
I was once invited to the wrong Christmas party.
And I'm Gary. And today we're going to review and discuss Die Hard, which came out in 1988 from director John McTiernan. Iain, why don't you give us the synopsis for Die Hard?
Well, the story follows John McClane, played by Bruce Willis. John has gone to Los Angeles to meet up with his estranged wife at the Nakatomi Plaza where she works. There's a Christmas party going on, and John hopes to go there and repair the damage he did to their marriage. A group of terrorists turn up, led by Hans Gruber, played by Alan Rickman, and John is the only man who can stop them.
Come out to the coast, we'll get together, have a few laughs.
Die Hard's actually got quite an interesting production history to it, considering its origin was a novel by Roderick Thorpe back in 1979 called Nothing Lasts Forever, which was a sequel to Frank Sinatra movie called The Detective. And essentially Die Hard was going to be that film's sequel. Fox finally got around to making the film, and they asked Frank Sinatra because they were kind of legally obliged to ask him, considering it was going to be a sequel. He would be playing the same part, but he was like, "Nah, I'm sorry, I'm like in my 60s now. I'm too old to be doing these kind of films." So Fox were like, "Okay, we need to find a new actor for this."
Yeah.
I know, John McTiernan. You know, you directed Predator last year with Arnold Schwarzenegger. How about you direct him again in Die Hard? And how about we change it from John Matrix to John McClane? Or John McClane to John Matrix, so that it can be the sequel to Commando. But Arnie was like, "No, I'm sorry, I don't do sequels." Anyway. So they actually shopped it around to a few other actors. Of course, Sylvester Stallone was asked. A couple of other sort of early 80s action heroes were being asked, but they were like, we don't want to do this. I'm kind of doing Rambo, so no thank you. And so they eventually landed on Bruce Willis, which was a bit of a gamble when you look at it, because Bruce Willis he had just gone from being a barman to a TV actor, then being paid nearly $4 to $5 million for this huge film. And lo and behold, Bruce Willis has become an absolute massive star. And I think this film has spawned 4 sequels to date.
Yeah.
And there's probably going to be more.
Die Hard. I mean, I don't know what I can actually say for this film, apart from praise it. I don't want to praise it too much. But for me, this is the ultimate Christmas movie. The top one up there on my list. You know, I can go through them. You know, you got your Scrooge, you got your Christmas Carol, you've got your Gremlins. You know, there's a few others in there, but Die Hard for me just sums it up.
Which is strange considering it was a summer blockbuster.
Yeah.
And considering that the film has next to nothing to do with Christmas other than it's set on Christmas Eve.
Well, there's a few Christmas decorations there and some references to Santa Claus, and you do hear some occasional jingle bells playing in the background, but you just need something. Christmas Eve with all that stuff going on, all the presents are wrapped, the turkey is basted, the potatoes are prepared, Santa's getting ready to drop off the presents at your house. You are not going through the stresses that John McClane is going through. Even from the start of the movie, he's turning up to LA to sort out his marriage. You know, his wife has got a job working for this Japanese company. She's had to move out to LA. He's a New York cop. He's got far too many scumbags that he can't, you know, just leave on the streets to up and move away. So he's got to come to Los Angeles and he's got to win her over. And the only thing in his way are about 15 armed mercenaries led by the phenomenal Alan Rickman.
Alan Rickman this was his real first big break in terms of movies. He had worked in television and a lot of theatre production, and he has almost cemented what an 80s or 90s, or dare I say, what an action movie villain should be like.
Yeah.
And it's someone who's charismatic, sort of in control of the situation.
Yeah.
Someone who just holds that screen presence and just lets his body language do most of the talking for him.
It's just phenomenal. But I mean, that's quite far into the movie actually as well. It's like a good 35-40 minutes before the terrorists have taken control. The build up to that though, like I said, McClane getting off the plane, you know, cementing himself as this husband father figure. The build up with Holly as well in the tower, making the phone calls at home, and then the party itself. I gotta bring up that little electronic thing that McClane messes with at the beginning. That was advanced. When I was younger and he had to touch the screen to look for the names in which direction to go, I was like, wow, this is futuristic.
Touchscreen technology. Also, you can also spot the mistake where her name changes when he pushes it. Happens very quickly, but...
McClane goes upstairs, you know, gets introduced to Mr. Takagi, the hostages. Well, they're not hostages yet. The party goers are in full swing. And just watching that truck drive up the street and the car cut in front of it, the music in the background playing up that this is... Whatever this is turning up at the building, it's bad.
Oh yeah, the music does a good job of letting you know exactly what's going on throughout the film, and does a lot of the talking for the film, for the audience. What makes Die Hard great, though, is Bruce Willis.
Yes.
And his performance as the everyday normal person, or normal cop, who is thrust into this situation as it unfolds. But you also get to see him exposed, really, when, you know, his limo driver, Argyle, pretty much just breaks down his character beat for beat right at the start about how he's literally was waiting for her to come crawling back to him. You know, you get to find out what sort of man John McClane is.
Yeah.
And there's that point where he's, you know, reconciling with his wife, and it looks like she's invited him back for Christmas. He's going to be able to spend time with her and the kids.
Yeah.
And then he just goes and throws it all away by just going, yeah, but you still changed your name. Didn't mind doing that when you cashed all the checks, did you? And it's just like, well, you could really see what sort of blockhead this character really is.
Consequences, no matter what it did to our marriage,
It didn't do anything to our marriage except maybe change your idea of what our marriage should be.
I don't think you have a clue as to what my idea of our
I know
marriage should be.
exactly what your idea of our marriage should be.
But that's what's great about Die Hard, is that it's an action movie, but you actually care for the characters.
Yes.
And that is why Die Hard would go on to be the film that the rest of the late 80s and 90s would clone to death.
Yeah.
Because the formula in here works. The formula works. All you need to do is keep changing the characters, and the formula keeps becoming interesting in its different settings. Say, in a submarine, or a bus.
Yeah.
Or
on the side of a mountain. The weakness for the character, I think, is boosted up in this movie by... And it's only subtly. It's the removal of the shoes and socks. Having McClane turn up at the Nakatomi Plaza, and he's been told by the guy on the plane, you know, if you don't like flying, you should get there, take your shoes and socks off, and make fists with your toes. And you think, you know, that's quite funny, and you watch him do it. But then for the rest of the movie, which is almost 2 hours long, he's running around barefoot. Such a weakness for his character, because he's got no body armor. You can tell that by the vest. You know, he's just got his work trousers on. He's got his Beretta, which I don't know how many clips he's carrying on him, but I assume he's got about 30 bullets, which against armed terrorists isn't going to do a lot. And then no shoes and socks. And I sit there like, I know he's not going to die, but he's going to get hurt really, really badly.
9 million terrorists in the world, and I gotta kill one with feet smaller than my sister.
Once the terrorists have turned up and McClane has escaped, we're waiting for backup. And he comes up with some ingenious ideas about how to call for backup, setting the fire alarm off, you know. And it comes up to the first major fight for McClane. one-on-one, him versus this armed guard. This is where the mistakes start to turn up. And it's not even really a bad mistake, because you need it for your hero. The hero cannot die. Every time they've got him at gunpoint, they just talk to him and he kills them.
Next time you have a chance to kill someone, don't hesitate.
Thanks for the advice.
Yeah, I guess that point where, people are being killed. The owner of the company's been executed by Hans Gruber. McClane escapes, terrorists chase him, and they've got him at gunpoint, and McClane's hiding underneath one table after another, and the terrorist is quickly reloading, and he's telling him, you had the chance to shoot me, but you didn't, so here's my advice. It's like, well, eat your own advice. And therein lies the comedy. It's, rewatching the film now, I became aware of how farcical some of the jokes are in the film.
Yeah.
And Bruce Willis actually turned around and said, you know what, I spoke to a lot of cops, and in some grim situations, you'd be surprised at how many times they tried to change the mood by making one-liners or jokes in the situations. He said it's not really that uncommon for in situations to make those jokes, but Roger Ebert had a lot to say, or very little to say, about the police chief when he turns up, and how he kind of chews out McClane and kind of chews out any kind of sense of what's going on, and he really is just a walking joke machine and inside jokes when he mentions that, for all we know, that guy in there could have been a bartender, and it's like, well, he was.
Yeah, but I think that's also the beauty of it as well, because this movie fully cements that McClane is the hero. And, we could talk about the sequels as they come along, but for this one, he's on his own, surrounded by these armed terrorists, and you're waiting for the cops outside to do something. But everything they do, it's like watching a bunch of guys slipping on a banana skin.
Over and over again.
Over and over again. The only good one seems to be Sergeant Al Powell, played by Reginald Vell Johnson. Everybody else is waiting for the chief to tell them what to do. And then when he tells them what to do, and you just watch the shit fall around them, they're just like, oh, okay then, what are we going to do now? Let's wait for the FBI to come up. But we shouldn't really do that. McClane's telling them, don't do that. And just like, no, go ahead. Boom, bang, smash, oh crap, oh what? And you're just like, you got told. You got told not to. Gruber is in charge. He knows exactly what he's doing. The only problem is McClane, and McClane's the only competent guy doing anything.
Let it snow, let it snow, let it snow. Man, God, everything is a crap! Welcome to the party, pal!
It does make for a great scene when he's looking out there waiting for Powell to realise what's going on before the body lands on his car. Before he realises, and then he's being shot at. And that's really when the film, for me, really kicks off. That's when all of the pieces have been set, because the rest of the police turn up, all the sirens are going off, and then you're waiting for the FBI to turn up as John McClane, kills off a few more terrorists. And then we get this guy, this really sleazy, businessman.
Ellis.
And we already had a scene with him snorting coke earlier. And so Ellis decides he's going to sell out John McClane and tries to broker a deal with Hans Gruber.
I don't think there's ever a time that I actually ever enjoyed the Ellis character in Die Hard. I just, I'm kind of glad what happens to him, because he tries to sell McClane out, but then in a way protects Holly.
Because, he could have just sold Holly straight out.
Yes, yeah.
But it kind of looks like he has a thing for Holly and is kind of doesn't want this McClane character getting in the way of that.
But then at the same time, he wants to be the hero. So he's like, oh well, if I get McClane to hand himself in, we'll all be safe. But McClane, as he does say in the scene, knows what kind of man Hans is, and so Hans just like, this is just another guy. If I shoot another hostage, it makes no difference to me, because it turns out that we call them terrorists. We always seem to call the guys in Die Hard 1 terrorists, but they're not. They're basically just big bank robbers. They planned to steal the $640 million from the vault of the Nakatomi Plaza. And so anybody who tries to negotiate any plans, Gruber's just like, I don't care about that. I care about the money. And so, bang, shoots Ellis. Puts McClane into a tight spot, but then I think it fully cements to John McClane that I'm just going to kill all these guys. I need to kill all these guys. I can't just arrest them and take them to jail. They would kill me the first chance they get.
And that's, again, what I really like about Han's character, is how calculated and efficient he is.
Yeah.
Where he pretty much has meticulously planned out this entire siege. And he's waiting for the FBI to turn up. He's waiting for them to play by their hostage negotiation playbook.
Yes. Yeah.
And that is how he's using that as a timetable as to how much time he's got left to open the vault, in order the escape plan, and create all these other diversions to distract the police and McClane as to what's really going on.
In Canada, the 5 imprisoned leaders of Liberté de Quebec. In Sri Lanka, the 9 members of the Asian Dawn.
What the fuck?
I read about them in Time magazine.
Before we get to the magnificent ending, I do want to bring up just the set pieces. As amazing as the film is, I think the set pieces alone cement this film. The iconic Nakatomi Tower,
which strangely is also the 20th Century Fox headquarters.
Yeah, which is kind of awesome. The whole lobby sequence, especially when the armored car smashes up the stairs, the fight sequences on the different floors. You've got the construction floor in the first fight sequence. Then you've got the computer room, even the room with just the hostages in. It's just you can tell that the backdrop outside the window isn't really the streets of LA. It's just a painted background. But the way the actors kind of work with it, looking out the window and making you feel like you're on the 35th, 36th, 40th floor of this building, really makes you understand that it's not just one tiny area that they're in. They're actually got this whole tower to run around and the surrounding outside. Leading all the way up to the roof sequences. I do love the roof sequences. The first fight sequence when Carl is chasing after McClane, and then the sequence with the hostages and the FBI's attack helicopters coming up. You're just like, how much money did they put into all this?
Well, John McTiernan wasn't a big fan of the original script for this film. He thought it was too dark. He didn't like the terrorists' nature of it, which is why he changed it to bank robbers and really took out some of the dark sections of it and replaced it with some comical characters and some funny moments in the film, like one of the terrorists hunkering down for a Hershey chocolate bar, or one of the SWAT team members getting his hand stung on nettles outside. And it's like, why are all these little funny moments put into this film, which is really quite serious? And it does just keep the mood light, despite the fact that people are getting killed every other minute in the film. The action sequences are really good. The stunt double does a good job for the stand-in for McClane. Some of the sections where he's falling through elevator shafts. There's a huge sort of climax where he's swinging off a fire hose, off the top of the building in another absolutely spectacular explosion. And that's to say, the explosions in this film are very real. There was a lot of pyrotechnics used, a lot of explosions, and a lot of cameras to make sure that they captured it. They also had a lot of lights to go off to also add an extra oomph to the explosion effect. Also, a lot of the muzzle flashes were extended. Of course, in films, they use real guns, but they use blanks. And these blanks were made to fire even louder than normal guns or blanks should sound. Bruce Willis actually even suffered permanent hearing loss as a result of working on this film because of the explosions and the sounds of the guns, which, it makes it hyper real.
Yeah.
And something that the McTiernan wanted was to make it a vivid, exaggerated action movie, which sort of let you believe it's real.
Promise, I will never
Even think about going up in a tall building again.
Oh God, please don't let me die.
The film is also filled with some of the most quotable and memorable lines in film history.
Yeah.
You know the one. He says it in every sequel.
Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker.
It was brilliant. What does it actually mean? Well, you know, they call him the cowboy throughout the film, and I think there's a western playing in the background. I think John Wayne's even mentioned in the film. And it does sort of sound like a cowboy expression.
I thought it was kind of like Japanese.
Well, it can be translated roughly to "here, eat this," which kind of makes sense.
Yeah. Eat this, motherfucker.
Oh, yes. What was it you said to me before? Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker.
And there's a lot of other lines that you'll also remember him giving, like when he's crawling through the air vent and he explains how this is how a TV dinner must feel. Welcome to the party. The scene where Hans finds Carl in the elevator shaft with the T-shirt that's printed, "Now I have a machine gun, ho, ho, ho." And Alan Rickman's just cold delivery of those lines. The other scene with McClane where he says, "Come on, come down to LA, get together, have a few laughs."
Yeah.
You know, just all of the moments that make McClane, all of the little one-liners that you just remember, that when you rewatch the film that you just say it before it even happens in the film. It's because you just keep rewatching Die Hard because it is that damn good. It is one of the best action movies ever made, and it's been celebrated by having so many clones even to this day. Don't ever remake Die Hard because you've already remade it so many times already. I have quite a few memorable sequences in the film. It is almost the entire film is a memorable sequence.
Yes.
It's one of the films you have to see before you die. It really is that good. And it still has aged very, very well. All of the performances, even the sort of funny sidekick characters, even the FBI guys, Johnson and Johnson, that turn up for a few minutes. Even Walter Peck's small performance as the shithead reporter that turns up in the film. My favourite scenes, it was an unrehearsed sequence, and it's the scene when Hans and McClane meet for the first time.
Yeah.
And Hans tries to pretend that he was another person at the party who sort of avoided being detected.
Yeah.
And I like the fact that they kept that sequence unrehearsed, so that there was the first time the two actors would meet each other in the film and sort of on the set. And I think that sort of uneasiness and unnatural behaviour sort of comes across.
Yeah, yeah.
And I like the mind games that had been played up to this point, where you saw Han trying to isolate who the owner of the company was, and now here where he's trying to avoid detection. It's also great for Alan Rickman, who at the time, the producers didn't realise that he could put on an American accent, and so this scene wasn't even originally in the film, and it's now one of my favourites.
Yeah.
One of my other favourite, and always one of the things I always remember when I think of Die Hard, is McClane running across that minefield of broken glass, and just pulling the shards out of his feet afterwards. They sold the effect very well, where he was actually wearing shoes that looked like feet, so that he could run across it.
Yeah.
And in a couple of shots, his feet look bigger than they actually should, because that's obviously he's wearing feet shoes.
Padding, yeah. For me, favourite scenes... maybe... The whole film. While we've been talking about this review, while we've been doing this review, I've literally been watching the film all over in my head again, just enjoying every single sequence. McClane, Gruber, Powell, like you said, Ellis, Argyle, the Johnsons, even the news reporter back at the station, and they're talking to the psychologist, and it's random snippets like that just keep the film flowing. While these things are happening, McClane is running around doing his thing. The terrorists are getting into position and doing their thing. Everything just keeps snowballing until it gets really, really big up to the top of the hill, and then it comes all the way flowing all the way down with the big explosions, and the hostages running all over the place, and the money trying to get out, and the kids there saying "Come home." Everything Die Hard.
Hey, give us a break, Thornburg.
Eat it, Harvey.
So something else that I have to bring up about the film is the film's soundtrack.
Yes.
It really works, as I said earlier, incorporating themes like Beethoven's score, along with sort of what you would find as a standard action movie, mixing it in with Christmas music, and then adding in sort of the jingle bells or the sleigh bells, or just little Christmas sounds throughout the film, just to remind you that it is Christmas. And I just think the soundtrack is another character in this film, and it really works.
Yeah.
It goes without saying that I recommend Die Hard. I doubly recommend Die Hard, because you can't just watch it once if you've never seen it. You watch it, like some people, every year, every Christmas without fail, because it is your number one Christmas movie. And it's easy to see why. It stands the test of time. It stands repeated viewings. It is one of the ultimate action movies of the 80s. It launched the careers of Alan Rickman and Bruce Willis. It's a phenomenal film. It's set the formula for all action films to come. You can't really heap much more praise onto it. It's worldly known that Die Hard is great. Unfortunately, some of its sequels, not so great.
Yeah. I fucking doubly doggy dare recommend Die Hard. It's Die Hard. What can you say? It's Die Hard. Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker.
Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker.
Have a good Christmas, everyone, and happy holidays, and we'll see you in the new year. Thanks for watching.